Spain, 1971, Mount Pani. High above the Bay of Roses, near Cadaqués, a cold, clear night, and a radar station watching the sky. Corporal Jesús Jofré Milà was on duty at EVA-4, a Spanish Air Force radar base, built into the mountainside.
This used to be a base, radar for controlling the air access point to the peninsula, which is why it was strategically located very close to France in the town of Rosas-Cadaqués. So it was a secret military base, like any unusual base. This was happening back in 1971. So we were living in some houses in the radar area, and our mission was to patrol the entire perimeter. When we did that, we had a group of German Shepherd dogs, especially trained for this job.
That night, something felt a little off. The dogs wouldn't stop barking.
March 25, 1971, the dogs were really agitated. We went to calm them down, but we could tell something was going on, something out of the ordinary, or that the dogs were picking up on something that wasn't quite normal. Anyway, we left the dogs alone and went to watch TV, but they kept making a fuss until my buddy, who was in charge of the dogs, and me, since I was assigned as a corporal, I decided to step away from the group because I noticed something was going on, something that didn't seem normal. And when we stepped out of our huts and wanting to head to where the dogs were, a buddy who was in the guard booth pointed up at the sky and said, "Look over there." And there we saw a ship.
Was it a disc?
This craft was a classic one, or like two plates, one on top of the other. Very classic. And it gave off a golden yellow glow, bright, really bright, letting us see the whole structure because the light didn't blind us.
Folks, just a quick announcement. The Majestic 12 clearance sale is now live. You can now save up to 50% on our Majestic 12 merch line, which includes all of our t-shirts, both for men and women, our sweaters, our journals. This sale only lasts until Wednesday, so check it out, area52.shop. 6 men stood together staring up at this oval-shaped light as it drifted left to right across the horizon. Then, in an instant, it shot toward the sea and disappeared.
It was right above the microwave hut, the ones that hold or used to hold all the radar antennas, at a very close distance, because to our eyes it looked about 10 to 12 inches across. I mean, it was really close. After watching it for a length of time, we could never really figure out, maybe about a minute. A minute and a half later, the craft skidded up into the sky at an incredibly high speed.
Did you see the craft shift before it took off? It's a strange question.
As it was heading out, it took a slightly diagonal angle to the right, and it started off slowly at first, but for just a second or two, and then it shot up toward the sky really fast.
There was another report that I read about somebody seeing a powerful flash and then them having some sort of eye problems afterwards, like swollen eyes for a few days. Can you elaborate on that?
Exactly, and this happened to Luis, the co-worker who was in the booth. He got almost to the edge of the rocky ledge that formed the base. And then there was a moment when he saw the ship come down on those very same days. It came down at incredible speed, and when it reached the water, it looked like it hit with a very bright flash of light that hurt his eyes. que le perjudicó la vista.
They found him clutching his eyes, half blind from a brilliant flash that seemed to come from the sea. His eyes were swollen and red for days, and the base medic couldn't explain it. Trying to calm the dogs, Jesus grabbed his sidearm and joined Adria, the handler.
Then I realized something was going on. With the dog held, wearing the obedience collar, and us with our leashes. With our weapons ready, we headed out toward the microwave shack to see what was going on there, because we could see a kind of glow, green in color, and behind, de color verde detrás.
They took one of the German shepherds and followed the green beam of light to the huts near the fence line. The air seemed to be charged, thick with static. Jesus said his tongue tingled, like touching a live battery. Even the dog whined, shaking its head as if it hurt.
We saw a flash of green light that shouldn't have been there, because that's where the base ended and only the perimeter fences were left. We heard a sound like very heavy footsteps coming toward us. The thing is, it was taking steps that seemed to be coming really fast to us, because with such great height, each step covered a lot of ground.
Heavy footsteps. Something large, moving fast. Stop, they shouted, and no response. Again, nothing.
And right away, we saw a very tall figure, about 7 feet to 7 feet 2 inches tall. Later, based on the conversation we had, we believe it was coming toward us. Did my partner call out, "Halt, who goes there?"
Adria, in a panic, opened fire. Jesus grabbed his sidearm and also fired 3 times, and the flashes from the guns lit the night, and the being just stood there.
And what about my partner? Without waiting for a third warning, he started firing his standard issue weapon. Here in Spain, it was the Sedmi brand, and he fired off the rounds he had in the magazine at close range. I, being the corporal, was carrying a 9mm pistol. Ready for action, I also fired 4 shots toward the same figure.
A figure over 2 meters tall, thin, pale, and long hair falling past its shoulders, wearing a belt around its waist with an inverted triangle emblem at the center.
The only light there was came from our shots, so that's what allowed us to see the being. A thin, gaunt figure, very tall, with long hair that reached his shoulders, golden blonde, in other words. A tight-fitting suit, kind of like fabric, with a metallic sheen, as we'd say. Relatively speaking, what stood out the most was that on the belt there was a buckle with a special symbol. This symbol is very well illustrated here in the book. It gleamed in the light of our shots, though we've always wondered whether it was just reflecting that light or if it truly had a glow of its own. It was like a silvery gray. It went up to his neck like a turtleneck. Did it have any other designs or emblems on his body that we couldn't make out? And we couldn't see their face either, but we did see their hair. At the sound of the shots, that figure stopped. And for a while, we also felt like something strange had happened, almost as if time had stopped. At the end of that suspended moment, the figure turned around and went back the way it had come.
After a few seconds, it turned, walked away, and they heard the metallic crash of a fence.
We stopped, but after just a short while, we heard a bang against the perimeter fence. because they were those metal fences with cross patterns. They moved. They're the kind of fences that shift, and we could hear the fence. Someone or something was bumping into the fence, and the fence was making noise. After that, we didn't hear anything else. I grabbed the dog and told him to move forward. Along the fence, it started heading to the left. There was a moment when it stopped. Then, by the light of our flashlights, we saw that the fence was missing in a section about 16 to 20 inches wide.
At daylight, they found a massive section of the inner fence missing, disintegrated. The outer fence, right beside it, perfectly intact. No tracks, no sign of what broke through.
I'll tell you now that the next day, once it was light out, we went to check out the fence, and the fence, these 50 centimeters were missing. They had just vanished. The fence had the edges that were badly scorched, but there wasn't any trace of the fence left. We had to stitch up the whole fence with wire to close it. That's the end of the incident. From this point on, the base commanders step in, because when they hear gunshots, they head up to the radar. Let's see what happened. And when they show up, they start saying maybe we were drunk and fire off shots in a moment of madness, or that they're going to give us a serious talking to, and that's what they did. They each wrote a separate report to explain what had happened. Then things happened over the next 3 nights. First, when at the very end of the day we finally got to bed, it was already really late at night. I fell asleep in my bed with a heavy drowsiness, like something strange, and I started to dream. The scene where we get to where the being is, and I saw us firing. Then I could hear a bunch of voices in my head. That made it impossible to understand anything that was going on there. That was the first night. The same thing happened on the third night. But then I really did understand everything the being who came to me was saying.
2 nights later, on March 27th, the light returned. This time, around 60 witnesses on base saw it hovering for several minutes. Approximately how many people witnessed it?
Everyone at the base could see it, since they were all watching the sky. Look, there were 150 soldiers at the base, and there were almost 200 officers and non-commissioned officers. Because the runner was operating 24 hours a day, the officers, specialists, and so on took shift to cover the whole day. This was the small base we had, with more officers than actual soldiers.
Wow. Jesus said our reputation had been saved, but still, no radar record and nothing official. Then, on March 29th, they came back again. But this time, 2 Phantom jets were seen approaching the object before all 3 accelerated and vanished into the night sky. The Air Force denied any aircraft were ever launched, but radar operators whispered otherwise. I guess your bosses were probably wondering, you guys were drunk, you were out there finding a reason to shoot your guns, and that was the best you could do, but then they had this mass sighting, which then triggered an investigation. If I'm not mistaken, American soldiers as well were involved, but maybe I'm mistaken there. But they came and took pictures and interviewed personnel afterwards, correct?
For now, our officers are a lieutenant colonel and a commander. They interviewed the 3 of us and had us repeat the story and write a separate report for each of us. There we wrote down everything I've been telling you up to now. 2 American servicemen showed up, one black and the other white. along with an officer from the Spanish Air Force who spoke excellent English. They came to the base to look into this and ask us some questions.
They questioned the soldiers one by one, separately, told them to forget what they saw, and then photographed each man outside against a white wall using a powerful flash, even in daylight. No explanation, no report.
Yeah, and they were really bright flashes that gave off kind of a violet color, and they left us blinded. And they told us to forget all about this. You can't talk to anyone about any of this. Forget it. And honestly, we forgot about it.
The veteran ufologist Antonio Rivera later confirmed parts of this story, writing that American technicians were actually seen inspecting the cliffs near the bay, the same cliffs where the UFO had been observed descending into the sea. Officially, it was a radar maintenance check. Unofficially, well, no one was talking. And the case was sealed as a reserved matter by the Spanish Ministry of Defense. Currently in Cadaqués, Spain, which is this small coastal town, and not too far from here, well, there's this big radar base. So I've been coming to this town for 5 years now, I think 4 or 5 years, and kind of do a get-together with fellow magicians. We hang out, and we just it's kind of like a vacation spot for me, and it's been that for like 4 or 5 years, but ever since coming here, I've always been enamored by this massive sphere that sits atop this mountain. Now, no matter where you are in this vicinity, you're always kind of seeing this sphere in the background, which is like this wild dichotomy between this advanced tech, military presence, and the nature-filled, sort of whimsical and easygoing Spanish coastline. And so it's always really stuck out to me. And before coming here, which is interesting because there was a congressional hearing on UFOs, UAP, happening in Washington at the same time, but I wasn't drawn to that. In fact, I was drawn to a story that I had come across while researching if there were any stories on this area or within this area. And turns out that radar base was a bit of a hotspot. Now, I've brought along with me Jesse Michels, who obviously you guys will recognize from American Alchemy, and just to bond and chill and hang out. He was in Europe anyway, so I invited him to this magic get-together, and I thought it'd be interesting if we together went to go check out this radar base, and that's exactly what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be going up there with a local, my friend, John, who has himself had an encounter about 3 years ago, right here.
It's happened 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So before you actually started your channel, I believe.
Yeah, before
Right?
Area 52,
Yeah,
correct, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Here's exactly where this happened.
Exactly on that island. I was with my friend, Kike. We were on the terrace. It was after sunset. It was getting kind of dark. And suddenly we're at the terrace just drinking wine. And then this light came. I wouldn't say a spaceship. I don't put a shape on it. It's just this very bright light that appeared from far, then came really close. In meters, like 150 to 100 meters,
Wow.
yeah. But then went away again. But the strange thing is the movement. It wasn't like linear. It was sort of like this, and then fast here, and then slow, smooth, and then fast again. And then it just lasted, let's say, 20, 30 seconds. The time to see my friends and be like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And he was like, yes, so it's good that he was there. And then suddenly it did a few moves more like this, and then it went away super fast and disappeared.
What color was the light?
It was light, but it wasn't just white. It was a little gray and blue in it. So maybe kind of like the ocean now, you know, a little gray like this, but in a shiny way.
How high above the water do you think it was? Was it like up in the sky?
Yeah, it was like up, like right here, like in front of us, you know.
Okay.
And then it got brighter.
Yeah.
So that meant, I mean, at least I thought that was getting closer,
getting closer.
And then it just went away in the distance. But again, the movement didn't make any sense because it could go slow and not in a direction, but like spinning. And then it could go instantaneously, super fast. So it was
Wow.
very strange.
The case that you know, I'm looking at out here from Jesús Jofré Milà, who worked at this radar base. This is the area where he said the craft came from as well. And it was a bright light for him, you know, as well. Just for the people watching, this is an island.
Yes.
No one's flying a drone out here.
It wasn't a drone. It wasn't a drone. It's no way. Drones make noise. They don't go the speed. They don't have that speed. It's just like an instant of going to places and then just disappearing like that. And I know it wasn't anything else I've ever seen before because again, it was the way it moved actually. More than even the light itself. It's just like how it flowed through the air and then just vanished like that.
What was your reaction with your buddy? Were you guys scared? Were you excited?
Well, we were excited. I thought it was really cool and also like happy to finally see something like that you hear so much, like, oh, the aliens, the this and that. Well, at least I had my own experience. But at the same time, we looked at each other laughing, thinking, they're not gonna believe us, you know? Like, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm sure it was something else. But I know when I see my friend that we know what we saw, you know? So it's okay.
We're going to see how close we can get to this radar base. Obviously, there are signs saying access is prohibited and there are fencing. So who knows? Maybe we'll run into somebody coming out of the base. Maybe somebody's going to come and talk to us. Maybe somebody, you know, kind of changing shifts. And maybe we'll be able to intercept them and ask them a few questions about not only that sort of event, but maybe other phenomena that they might have observed, seeing as how they do work in a radar base. And if UAP or UFO presence is in the area, they would be aware of it. Jesse, you ready to go infiltrate a military base?
I'm so ready.
We're going there. Right there.
Nuestro amor es fuego y corren las balas.
See any aliens? All right, we're coming up to the spot. It says restricted access. Access, restricted entry, military zone. We can park here, right? No one else is coming.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so here we are. This is the entrance to the military zone, which is the radar base of Roses, which is right there, right behind me. That would be the spot where those UFOs came up on. I kind of just want to hang out and see if anybody comes, says hi to us or tells us that we can't go any further. Because then maybe at least we could talk to somebody, some type of military official. They're probably watching us right now is my guess.
Yes.
What's the feeling you get being here?
You know, excited. I look at this sign, but like I don't see anybody here, and I think we can keep going.
You think we should keep going?
I do.
Do you think we're being looked at right now?
No, I don't.
We got a car that just drove down the hill and parked itself up top there. Oh, they're on their way down. I mean, that road leads to right where you're at. Let's see if these guys want to play ball. Back in the day, Jesus, the guy that worked here, said that the UFOs that were seen hovering above the base 2 nights after were witnessed by 150 employees.
Whoa.
He said there are anywhere up to 200 employees in that radar base every day.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's 24/7. But it seems like they remain quite tight-lipped about their stuff. You know, oh, there's a car coming down.
You think they're coming for us?
Well, I mean, there's a van. I bet if we were dressed up like cyclists or something,
Yeah.
they wouldn't mind so much. You'd just be like, sorry, I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
I think if you say Jesse Michels loud enough, our phones start to record. Just like what's going on up there. Just act dumb, basically. What's one of the Google reviews you were saying?
This one says, push it down the hill. Ball that visually pollutes the surroundings of Cap de Creos Natural Park. 1-star review.
1 star.
Someone else says.
Oh wait, this car's coming.
Long live aliens.
Wait, he says long live aliens?
Yeah, that's the translation. And then it's got a lot of people
Liking it? This car is coming right around the bend. You see it?
Extremely slow.
I got him on camera. Really? It was at this moment he knew. All right. I don't know where that car went. It seems to be like parked behind the bend or something. I don't think anyone's coming. That car just whipped by us here. Didn't even stop to say hi. So unless we see another vehicle come down, I don't think we're going to be able to talk to anybody. So unfortunately, our expedition to the EVA-4 radar base bore no more fruit, and we eventually made our way back down the mountain. But the search for more witnesses still continues. In the years that followed the incident at Rosa's radar base, Jesus continued to speak about what he had witnessed. He had left the military shortly afterward and became involved in the growing civilian UFO research movement in Spain during the 1970s. Jesus collaborated with investigators and groups that documented sightings throughout Catalonia, often exchanging information with researchers such as Antonio Rivera and J.J. Benitez. He stated that his motivation was not to prove anything to authorities, but to understand what he and his companions had experienced on Mount Penny.
This led the three of us veterans, the dog handler, Anselmo, Luis, and me, who were in the little guardhouse last night. We built a great bond through this whole situation. In the end, it pushed us to go on a search after our military service, like a UFO craze everywhere. In fact, anywhere a UFO showed up, people knew we were going to check it out.
By then, strange reports were spreading through the valley below. Shepherds said their sheep were vanishing. 2 were found mutilated. Farmers said their cows gave less milk, and even days later, the dogs were still uneasy. In September of 1971, the lights came back. Red, green, yellow, shifting colors that moved east to west across the sky and then back again the next night. And on the 17th, witnesses saw a triangular craft low on the horizon, flashing bright enough to cast reflections on the water. But according to Spain's Centro de Estudios Interplanetarios, nailed it, something similar had already happened here, months before. Late 1970, radar operators saw a reddish gold ovoid craft rising straight up, then suddenly turning at a perfect right angle and disappearing over the Bay of Roses. Even that object never appeared on radar. And then, 5 years later, it happened again. This time a different base with different soldiers, but the same impossible pattern. You see, November 12th, 1976, Talavera La Real Air Base, near Badajoz, 2 soldiers on night patrol, Jose Maria Trejo and Juan Carrizosa Luján, hear a strange mechanical whistle coming from the darkness near the fuel depot. A high-pitched electrical tone. They call out. No answer. The dog bolts towards the sound, then returns staggering, disoriented, and sick. Moments later, a light appears overhead, bright and motionless, then fades, leaving the night completely silent. And that's when they see it. A luminous figure, around 3 meters tall, composed of moving points of green light, its outline shifting like static electricity. Trejo collapses. Carrizosa opens fire. 40 to 50 rounds echo through the base. When the others arrive, the being is gone, vanished, as if it winked out of existence. No bullet casings, no impact marks, no blood, nothing. Trejo is hospitalized for temporary blindness, headaches, and vision loss. The Air Force confirms the gunfire occurred, but never what it was aimed at. The official connection between Roses and Talavera was never made, but the resemblance is impossible to ignore. Both cases, to this day, remain classified, and in Roses, the locals still talk about the lights over the sea, how they rise up quietly and hover for a moment and vanish, leaving behind only questions. By the early 1980s, Jesus had moved to the Pyrenees, near the French border. He remained active in UFO research and claimed to continue observing luminous aerial phenomena in the region.
Well, after searching for UFOs for a year and a bit, I realized it wasn't leading anywhere. We had lots of data and plenty of explanations from the people who had experienced the incidents, but no one was helping us get back that connection we'd had. I realized it wasn't so much about waiting, not so much that a being of higher intelligence would come to contact you, but rather that you should prepare yourself to be in a position to seek out that contact. And then I began a whole personal journey of inner search in many places, in many things.
During this period, well, he reported a new type of experience, one he describes as direct contact.
I spent over 10 years searching in esoteric schools, in religious philosophies, in many places where I hoped to find something. The answers to the truth about human reality until the moment came when I made up my mind. In my own personal growth, it led me to start looking for a life that was more in line with my wishes. Welcome the family and head off with them to the Pyrenees in Lleida. And that's when we arrived in the Pyrenees. What really started the contact I had been seeking with these beings. That's when I started having some notes that were with epigraph. I'm not sure if you can understand this system, which is automatic writing, like when your hand moves and writes by itself, right? I started getting in touch with these beings and had encounters with different ones. And I started to have sightings arranged for a specific place, day, and time. When a craft would appear, we could see it in the sky, sometimes farther away and sometimes closer. It was proof that the contact was real, not just our imagination. There was a craft that came down to where we were with the car and gave us a big flash of light. The one that left us a little shaken.
According to Jesus, around a decade after 1971 encounter, he met an entity he called Sharhim. I'd like to move on to what happened afterwards with his contact experiences.
Look, Chris, let me say something because it needs to be said. I'm 76 years old now, and I don't care what people think anymore. But I can understand that all of this falls into the realm of the fantastic and the unbelievable. So I'm basically inviting everyone to think whatever they want and believe whatever they want, right? I'm just sharing my experience exactly as I lived it. Let them think whatever they want, whether they believe me or think I'm crazy. I don't care at this point. Not me. This doesn't bother me anymore. I was living in Barcelona again, but I had a house built in the Pyrenees. And I got a message telling me to go to the Pyrenees on December 8 or 9. It was a day in December when we would meet and talk. This is the message I got. At that time, I stepped out onto the porch at the back of my house, and I saw something like a sphere, about 10 feet or more in size, golden in color. It stopped, came down, and hovered in the meadow behind my house. There was the sphere, that sphere that was opaque. It cleared up, became transparent, and I could see Sharhim inside it.
He described the being as tall and human-like and said the communication took place telepathically.
Not a bit of fear. I remember thinking, have they done something? Some kind of job to help me stay calm from the Sharhim sphere in a single step? He covered the 6 or 7 or maybe 8 meters That was the distance to my porch. And he showed up right at my front porch. And there he was, right in front of me. Sharhim comes over to me and he starts talking to me. Right away, I realize he's the same being we fired at during military service. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, when is this guy going to realize, since I shot at him, he might just give me a slap. But luckily, that's not what happened. He started talking to me about the reason behind why I was meant to have my encounter, about all the preparation I had in my life for that meeting. He started talking to me about a lot of things that really put me at ease because they helped me understand the reason behind it all, you know? There was a moment when, because of Sharhim's height, and I, being 5'9", was looking up so I could talk to him and thought, my neck's gonna get stiff. But it was like we were communicating mind to mind, and before I could even ask a question, he was already giving me the answers. We did have a conversation in words, but pay close attention in my native Spanish. I was hearing everything in Spanish, right? So then he put his own hand on my shoulder, and the moment he touches me, no, I hadn't told you, but he got caught up in some sort of double body. I immediately thought of a bluish color and figured it was some kind of protection. When they put their hand on my shoulder, that beam from that double protective body, it completely took over me. It wrapped around me entirely. And at that moment, what happened was amazing because I started to float, rising up to that height. My head reached the same height as his. I figured that if he put his hand on my shoulder, I should put my hand on his shoulder. But what happened to me was incredible because my hand sank into Sharhim's body. Then I realized that he had more of an energetic density than a physical one. So then, when I realized it, I lifted my hand again, and once I became aware of it, I was able to place my hand on his shoulder, and it stayed there. From this point on, we have a pretty long conversation. It lasted almost an hour, during which I asked questions in my mind and got immediate answers. Our conversation was more personal, and I've never shared the exact details of it, only the general topics.
Jesus claimed that Sharhim conveyed ideas about human progress, ethics, and what he referred to as universal brotherhood, an emphasis on moral development and cooperation among intelligent civilizations. These later experiences were peaceful and introspective, very different from the confrontation at EVA-4.
When Sharhim says to me, come with me, because we need to go on a little trip, he took me into his sphere of light, had it kind of dimmed in terms of the light it was giving off. It wasn't, you couldn't see it from anyone passing by. And the two of us stepped into the sphere of light. With the sphere of light, we traveled in a brief moment because I stayed in a perfect one. On a sensory level, I completely lost it. No contact with anything, And after a stretch of time I can't really define, we arrived at Sharhim ship. Is this one I showed you here in the drawing, okay? Then we got on Sharhim ship, which is called Estella. And it's a small research approach vessel. It's a ship that's 60 meters in diameter. It carries 4 crew members.
What does he go into the controls at all? Is there anything he can elaborate on the inside of the controls or insignias or any symbols or anything like that on the inside that would that he could talk about?
Take a look at the main emblem of these beings. It's the letter Phi. The letter Phi, not the letter P. Yes, this is the letter Phi, which is 1686. Okay, and this emblem is the drawing I'm showing you here. And the only emblem we saw inside the ship was this one, which was in different places. But what about the ship? It gave off its own light from all the walls. There were no lights. There was a light coming from all the walls. The ships aren't physically built ships with screws, wells, doors, and windows. The ships created in the mind. When Charin took me over to what was almost a wall of the ship, where there was basically just a desk. On it, there were different kinds of lights, and there, it came up from the ground, some kind of seat, of a chair or armchair. So when I sat down in this armchair, it molded to my body, and he did the same right next to me. The wall in front of us, he fiddled with something, and it turned into a window. A surface that let us see outside.
This is very common. This is I've heard of this many times. I don't know if he's familiar with Bob Lazar, but he described the same thing in his craft. Yeah, he experienced the same thing. He said the wall became transparent and he could see through, but he says it wasn't completely transparent. It was like a little foggy.
Practically transparent, but it was still there. It was like a thick piece of glass. The Charin took me on a trip. He came with the ship right to my house. He flew over and then took me in the ship to a famous mountain in Catalonia called Montserrat.
Does real quick, can he elaborate on Sharhim's facial features a little bit more?
Here's the picture of Sharhim. Blue eyes, slightly slanted upward. Blue eyes, golden hair, in other words, blonde. And this is the face of a delicate, very delicate smile, and with very thin lips, but definitely not a big head or anything like that. Anyway, I have to tell you, they look into the mind of the person they're talking to, their idea of beauty and aesthetics. And I guess that when they let themselves be seen in physical form, they're taking on something that's pleasing to you. Wrapping this up in Montserrat, we had contact with beings who lived inside the mountain. They are masters of light, masters of memory. And there's a place that like a part of or a branch of Shambhala, but that's a whole different story. For now, he took me to Montserrat, then he came back to my place and left again. We went back to the ship. It was still where it had been, and we went back down with the sphere to the porch of my house.
Until his later years, Jesus maintained that what happened at the radar base in 1971 was the beginning of a process, one that led him from the structure of the military duty to a lifelong search for meaning in the phenomenon.
Well, I think I've already told you quite a lot. Now, please, you go ahead and ask me, because I'm not really sure how much more I should explain about all this.
Okay. I have a special request for him. Okay, I do lots of meditation, and I'm taking a small group to meditate right by the ocean. We're right on the sea, and it's a shot in the dark. But if he could put a word in, and maybe hopefully have something show up.
No, this doesn't work like ordering off a menu at a restaurant. And so I never ask them any questions. I get a lot of them, as you can imagine. And I can only tell you personally that I think you're going to experience something very special in that meditation. But when you start the meditation, you need to make a mental projection of your intention. There are lots of sightings all around the Cadaqués and Roses area, and they are somewhat connected to that mountain. I can tell you there's a underground ship base in Rusas Bay. De naves en la Bahía de Rosas.
So although we didn't get much from our trip to the radar base, Jesse and I, over the course of the next few nights, got on top of the roof of the house we were staying at and decided to meditate for several hours. Well, here's what we saw.
That's the radar base right there. Nothing much going on over the radar base. Clouds are coming in though. Oh, just caught a little shooting star or something go by. There's a satellite. Whoa, 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 whoa.
That there? That blue there?
No.
What?
There's no doubt in my mind that something happened in 1971. There are too many witnesses, too many locals that have reported sightings. There are military personnel who, in different bases, came face to face with something that they shot at in the middle of the night. I, as an investigator and as someone who's looking into this, can't ignore those facts. Now, as far as his subsequent meetings with this being called Sharhim go, that's something you'll have to decide for yourself. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that we've heard of these sort of quote-unquote space brothers come down with a message for us. I mean, we've had many witnesses report the exact same beings dressed in the exact same clothes, from Jesse Rosenberg to Travis Walton, and so many more. Were the 1960s to late 1980s just a pocket where these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall human beings from space came down to Earth to contact us and to warn us of a dreadful existence, or was this some type of militarized operational psyop? I think there are some parts of this story that require further investigation and definitely have captivated my interest. He describes the craft similar to many other glowing discs at that time, performing the same type of maneuvers in the same area with beings that were also reported similarly in that area. It's really hard to say, but compelling nonetheless. And I invite you to check out his work. I'll leave the links below if you're interested. Currently, they only exist in Spanish. I want to take a second to thank you guys for watching. Also, thank you to Hara, who is an operative over at Area 52, who helped me translate my conversation with Jesus in real time. Thank you so much. That was a great help. Also, thank you to our Area 52 investigators. And lastly, thank you to Jesús Jofré Milà for opening up and sharing your story with us on this channel. It is truly appreciated, and I wish you nothing but the best.
You should know that the reason I agreed to do this interview with you is because it's become clear to me that there's a connection, a deep bond from the past with you. And so I found myself able to share things with you that I probably wouldn't tell many other people.
Have a good one. Peace and love.